Hey, welcome. Today we're jumping into the background of one of the most fascinating and honestly unique books in the entire Bible, the Gospel of John.
Here's a great way to think about what makes John so different. You know the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke? They kind of walk you through the day-to-day streets of Jesus' life. But John takes you all the way up a mountain for this incredible, sweeping view of who Jesus really is. So here's our game plan. We're going to look at its unique portrait of Jesus, try to solve the mystery of who wrote it, pin down the when and where, and figure out its real purpose. Then we'll see exactly how it stands apart from the other Gospels, and finally, map out its really clear four-part structure. Okay, first up, that unique portrait. You have to understand the Gospel of John isn't just another biography. It has a very specific and very deep goal in mind. See, the book's whole mission is to get you to do more than just watch Jesus' actions or listen to his teachings. The goal is to get you to look so closely, so intently at this person that you suddenly see it. You're looking at the human face of God. So who actually wrote this theological masterpiece? Well, that's where things get really interesting. It's one of the great puzzles of the New Testament. The thing is, the book doesn't just come out and tell you. There's no written by on the title page. Instead, it gives us this fascinating clue that has kept people talking for centuries. The text itself says that its main source is the eyewitness account of a figure called the disciple whom Jesus loved, or the beloved disciple. Now, this is a really important detail. The author isn't saying he is this person. He's saying he's recording this person's testimony, so the whole story is told through the eyes of this unnamed, incredibly close follower of Jesus. So who was it? Well, there are a few leading theories. For centuries, the traditional view was that it was John, the son of Zebedee, one of the 12 apostles. But more recently, scholars have suggested other ideas, like maybe a different church leader named John the Elder. Another really popular theory today is that it was a group project, a whole Johannine community that worked together to preserve the memories of that beloved disciple. All right, so we've dug into the who. Let's talk about the when and the where. Because putting this book in its historical context is absolutely key to getting its message. Most experts agree that John was the very last of the four Gospels to be written, probably sometime between 80 and 95. And just think about that timeline for a second. This means it was written at a critical moment when the people who had actually seen and heard Jesus in person were starting to pass away. There was this real urgency to get their testimony down before it was lost forever. And where was it written? Probably the city of Ephesus. The atmosphere there was tense. The followers of Jesus who were Jewish were going through this really painful split from their local synagogues. And you can feel that conflict with the religious leaders all through the book. It really shapes the arguments and the themes. So why write this book at all, especially during such a hard time? Well, what's so cool about the Gospel of John is that we don't have to guess. The author tells us straight up. Right near the end of the book, in chapter 20, you get this perfectly clear thesis statement. The stories and the signs he includes, they aren't just there for the historical record. They were all carefully chosen for one reason: to help the reader believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God. So the gospel really has this two-part purpose. On one hand, it's evangelistic. It's trying to bring new people into the fold. But on the other hand, it's a message of encouragement, designed to strengthen the faith of believers who were facing all that rejection and hardship. It was telling them what you believe is true, and it is worth everything. And that clear, persuasive purpose is exactly what shapes the book's unique style. I mean, if you've read the other Gospels, the differences in John just jump off the page. The contrast is just so stark. The other Gospels, they start with Jesus' birth or his baptism. John, he goes all the way back to the very beginning with creation, calling Jesus the cosmic Word of God. The other Gospels have Jesus telling these short, relatable parables. John has Jesus giving these long, philosophical speeches. And instead of a long list of miracles, John carefully picks out just 7 specific signs to prove his point about who Jesus is. And maybe the most famous difference of all, the 7 I am statements. You only find these in John's Gospel. Here, Jesus takes a phrase that was used for God himself in the Old Testament and uses it to make these huge claims about his own identity, that he is the source of all life, all truth, and all salvation. So finally, how does all of this fit together? Well, even with all its deep theology, the book has a surprisingly simple and really elegant 4-part structure.
It kicks off with that incredible prologue about the Word becoming flesh. That's followed by what scholars call the Book of Signs, where Jesus performs those 7 miracles. Then you get the Book of Glory, which brilliantly reframes the crucifixion, not as a defeat, but as Jesus' ultimate moment of glory. And it all wraps up with an epilogue, which gives us one last, very personal appearance to his disciples. So, we'll leave you with this question to think about. Knowing that every single story, every speech, and every sign in this book was deliberately chosen to build a case for belief, how does that change the way you might read it? It's not just a history book, is it? It's a powerful, persuasive invitation. Thanks for watching.